Hi, welcome to the Mom series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity. I'm going to do a video on the 22 Faces, DrPhil, Judy Byington, and Jenny Hill. The DrPhil show, Take Publishing House, and I'm going to try to cover as much as I can very quickly, and I'm just going to leave a whole bunch of links for you to go to. And I just wanted to say quickly, this is the Mom series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity. I apologize for my lighting. The light just went down, and if I turn on the backlight, it's going to be too bright, so I'm using a flashlight to just try to keep some light here. The Mom series looks at all representations and portrayals of multiplicity in the media, and how media sensationalizes it, misrepresents it, misconceptions, falsehoods, and how it's usually portrayed as deviant, demonized, criminal, bizarre, or spoofed, or made fun of. So, and the catch-22 of that, when there is a true story or docudrama of a person that experienced their lives as multiple, that they have to come out and do this dog and pony show. They have to show they have to do the show and tell, or nobody believes they're multiple. But if they do the show and tell, then they're crazy and they're out of it. So it really is a catch-22. Okay, so many of you in the multiple community may know Jenny Hill, or better known as the Jays, or there's been many names that Jenny and the group have gone by over the years. Jenny was diagnosed multiple between 1984 and 1985. She's a year older than I am, and I was diagnosed in 1986. During this time period, there was a panic going on, and we've heard Debbie Nathan talk about that panic of SRA, of children being abused, so just like Debbie Nathan talks about Sybil coming out in the 70s, and then the increase in diagnosing multiplicity in the 80s. A book came out in the 80s called Michelle Remembers. Michelle Remembers was very much about satanic ritualistic abuse, and then there were a lot of reports of satanic ritualistic abuse. So this is kind of what some people are thinking, is that Jenny is just one more child that maybe read the book, or that the autobiographer Judy Byington read the book and interpreted Jenny's writings as such. They're looking at the relationship between Judy and Jenny. Jenny was diagnosed multiple in 1985 by Dr. Weston Whetcott, I'm going to say his name wrong again. Excuse me, I'm going to look it up real quick. I wanted to say Dr. Weston Whetcott, PhD, MSW, LCSW, who treated Jenny at the Utah Medical Center. That's where he works, but he treated her at the Psychiatric Center when he was a young doctor in Utah. And he observed Jenny's what she calls pieces or parts, alter personas, or what I call people in the group. But more than that, it was very important always journaling if a person entering a hospital with, in a dissociative state or a fugue state or not knowing what's going on, it was important for them to look at it, or if they try to kill themselves, one of the number one things they would want to do is look at their journals, see what they've been writing. So Jenny had all these writings that she didn't really recognize as her own, but she knew from a young child to write a book. She also knew from a young child that she should preserve all these records. What some people are saying is that comes from her religious upbringing, being a Mormon, and what she was taught in how the prophets preserved the tablets that Joseph Smith was shown. and that this would be something that a little child in an LDS faith would do, and to think it might be special someday. Other people are just saying, hey, she just saved them, or the other people with her just saved these records. So Jenny is diagnosed multiple in 1984 to 1985. She's treated by Dr. Weston Whetcott. And he looks at these repressed memory journals that Jenny has and explains to Jenny that she is multiple, and that Angel, another person in the group, or piece or part, like Jenny calls her, Angelique, needs to confess what she has written in this journal, which is about a little child dying in a sacrifice. So, they have this writing about a little child being decapitated and thrown into a fire. So they keep her in the hospital, and they tell Jenny, Angel has to confess, and you have to remember. And until she does, they very often put her in seclusion, very much reminiscent of the way she was positioned and restrained in the alleged abuse. And she remembers. It triggers it. I think that's what I have a lot of issue with. That's one thing. There's many things, but that's one thing. This thought that if a person advocates and relives and remembers the abuse and feels it, the body feels it, goes through all this pain and trauma, that it's released and then it's gone and you're all better. You're not. So 10 years later, Judy goes through marriages. She has children. Or Jenny goes through marriages, children. She ends up homeless quite a few times. She has several different jobs. She's a beauty queen. She's a prostitute. She's a mother. She's a nurse. She's going to school to be a nurse. And 10 years after being diagnosed, on her journey to get well, she meets Judy Byington, who has been specializing in SRA, who has been really looking into a lot of cases that have been reported, who is a CSW, or a licensed certified social worker, a master's in journalism, and has her own trauma research facility now. And she facilitates a lot of missing children, cold cases, works with the district attorney, with criminal investigators, and also interviews tons of different faith leaders on their practices and how a child might misconstrue that or what they might see. And then she also interviews ex-cult members who explain to her what all these things are. During her 20-year relationship with Jenny, she is a confidant with Jenny. She's a friend, and she is at times a counselor. DrPhil started saying that he was going to have this on the show back in August, September, and a lot of people wrote him and said, please get all your research straight. Please read the book and make sure you read the book and read all the history and talk to the doctors and everything, because there were a lot of incongruencies, and please don't exploit Jenny. And then there were Satanists that wrote DrPhil and said, hey, we don't do that kind of stuff to little kids, but the people that are in the church do, and then they blame it on Satanists. The parents that go to the church, and the church, they're the ones that do it, and they blame it on us, so, get your facts straight. Then there were SRA survivors who wrote and said, wait a minute, if you release this in October, there'll be retaliation, there'll be a lot more children abused, and a lot of people triggered, so don't. So he didn't. I don't know why he didn't, but he didn't. I didn't think it was going to be on TV at all, and I was coming home last Friday, and a friend of mine called and said, turn on Dr. Phil. it was halfway through the show, and I kept seeing these two women fighting, and it said bipolar and mentally ill moms. So I was like, I don't see it. I kept flipping the channel. She said, no, 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 no. She said he slipped that in under the title bipolar mentally ill moms. So I was too busy kind of really thinking, how dare he? How dare he confuse it even more? But it was just really hard to watch. I was watching like, kind of like, oh, I'm still watching. Oh, I don't want to see it, but oh, like that. And Jenny was just in the middle of DrPhil kind of like trying to debunk Judy and find out the motives of, kind of on the side of Jenny's son, who had to do a documentary on his mom and was saying, my mom is multiple, but that's not her story, the story Judy's telling. Meanwhile, Jenny's sister, Susan, is also saying, we've got Jenny taped saying, Judy's not telling the story that's her story, but she can't do anything about it. So Jenny ended up doing an entire open letter after doing the DrPhil show and going into the hospital and saying she's in a secluded place where neither her son Robert nor Judy, who are the only two people she has daily contact with, can contact her. And she straightened out a lot of it. She said, I am still multiple. Tate Publishing is a Christian publishing house. A lot of her healing has come from blessings from the elders in the LDS church, which I find hard to stomach, because if I was being abused by people in a actual church, I wouldn't then find my healing by people in that church. I don't, just my thing. But Tate Publishing says this is the way they promote the book is Jenny overcame her multiple personalities and her divided mind and confronted her multiple personalities through prayer, faith, and God and forgiveness. And they are a Christian book company. This is what they promote. And then Judy, her specialty. So I'm going to put a ton of links. You can just research it all you want and join all the discussions out there. And in the meanwhile, keep in mind that Dr. Colin Ross forwarded the book, who has spoken a lot about the Paperclip Project. Dr. Green, who has mentioned this undercover Nazi German who came into America to control children's minds of certain religions. And Dr. Colin Ross used to be the president of the ISSTD, a big granddaddy of like the multiplicity and specialist, who a lot of doctors took their P's and Q's from, until he ran into some legal problems and cases against him. And then he was no longer the president of ISSTD. He started his own institute called the Colin Ross Institute. But now there are tons of celebrities that find him very popular and go to him to understand alien abduction, mind control, government programs. So there's a whole group of people that find him kind of like cuckoo, a little over the top, and in his own profession that are like, oh yeah, he's, and then others that are like, oh yeah, he's brilliant. So, that's what it's all about, is freedom of choice to make up your mind. And I'm going to withhold my actual thoughts, because in the multiple community, I think a lot of you know Jenny and the group, and I just wish her well, and I wish that her and her son work this out, and that Judy stay out of the middle of that relationship. And I wish them well. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.